Okay, so Brian, one of the things you talked about was being a role model for your kids. You talked about your son activities with rowing and sailing and how school is important and so forth. You talked about their activities, but you also talked about how you as a role model were helpful in getting these activities instilled in your kids. So do you want to talk a little bit about being a role model, and you can relate that to your own family?
Yeah, to be a role model, it means to me like a team player. And that's where I learned to play hockey through Bob Clark. And with myself, as I got a little older, I learned how to become a better leader. With Mark Howe being there, he helped me with leadership too. And that's what I want for my son. I want to see him, he's going to mature and to go to school and get an education. He works hard. And so it all ends up where it's all pretty good.
Talk a little bit more about the role model that you have tried to be with your son and with your daughter. Tell me about your personal role as a role model.
Yeah, so my children played hockey in Cinnaminson, and they just played for fun, and I was a coach, but I taught them to be a good sport. And from that, they've learned a good lesson, and they're good sports, and they had fun. That's the key of it, is to have fun. As a result of playing hockey and playing on a team, you learn how to play different positions. My son was a goalie, and my daughter was a forward, and so we ended up, having a good team. They weren't that good, but as they got better, I noticed a difference with the team.
I know some soccer parents who, when I mentioned at a team meeting one time with parents, I mentioned, hey, this is about fun. This is a travel soccer team. That was like dropping the F-bomb in church. It's not about fun, they said. It's about scholarships. The kids were 11 years old. Talk a little bit more about the aspect of fun within kids' sports.
Yeah, I think that people have too much time to think about how they're going to be playing. And it's more about fun. Like, you have to enjoy what you're doing. Just like everything in life, the better that you do, the more fun you have. And it's the same thing when you work hard. You're going to be content with what you're trying to do. And education means a lot. I know that both my children are good students, and as a result, they're both going to college now. And so I'm looking forward to guiding them with my leadership role.
What would you say to other fathers just about the importance of education that they should be teaching their kids? You have any advice for fathers as it relates to education?
Yeah, so my two children worked hard in the summers, and they always knew what they were going to do. And as a result, I didn't have to ask them what they were doing. They were always doing work, and at an early age, and they were honest, and they had fun, and they're personable, and as a result, I don't have to teach them anything. They learn from my wife and my son and myself. So it was a good experience for both of them to work early, and they work hard, and they have fun.
Great. Similar to that. If your son was here and your daughter was here, and I asked them, I said, what have you learned from your father? What would they say? What would your kids say they learned most from you?
Well, I would say it's learning by an example, because I was always the hardest working flyer in practice and every game. And so as a result, they learned how to learn from me, how to be by example, and how to work hard and to have fun and win. I mean, winning makes it fun, and as a result, you can have fun when you win a lot.
So Brian, I grew up watching and admiring you and the other Flyers. One thing that always impressed me was your leadership on the ice. Talk about leadership and what your style was as a Flyer.
Well, when I came to the Flyers, Bobby Clarke was one of the best leaders in the world. And as a result, I learned from him by example. And then when Mark Howe was in the 80s, he led by example too. And so I learned from those two players how to be consistent with what you have to do. You work hard, you have fun, and you're competitive. So as a result, leadership really does make a difference of how you're doing things. Like as long as you try hard. I know that I was in 5 Stanley Cup Finals. I didn't win any, but doesn't mean that I was upset. You know, I was there all the time, and just sort of like my son and daughter. Like I've taught them, you know, just to give it to their best. And if they fail, I mean, that's okay, because they're going to learn from their mistakes.
What would you say to fathers in terms of their own role as a leader? Do you have any thoughts on that? What should fathers be thinking of about the leadership position that they're in, I think, whether they realize that or not? What would you say to fathers about being a leader?
Well, I think most fathers need to learn from their children because they're independent, and as a result, they're going to find out ways to help themselves. I know that with education, my children have done really well in school, but they find a way to get better through YouTube or other things like doing their homework. And if you learn from that, you won't have to teach them that much.
Do some fathers try to do too much, or mothers try to do too much for their kids?
Well, yeah, most of them are. It's called what's it called?
The helicopter.
Homework helper, or like someone that a parent always does things for you. So that doesn't help because it's like cheating themselves. So a parent can really get in the way of how they can lead.
By trying to do too much?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
1 second.
Yep.
Another second.
Brian, we talked earlier about spending time with your kids. So let's get into that. And I guess one question I would have is, you're a professional athlete. You had a great career over a long period of time. You were on the road a lot. But you talked about how you spent time with your kids. Talk about how you spent time with your kids despite being a busy person. How did you do that, and what do you think that meant for both them and for you?
So I know that my children have learned from charities. The Flyers Wives Fight for Lives Carnival, every year they go and they help out. And a couple other charities that I've helped with, they learn from that, and they learn how to give back. And as a result, they're going to be able to be more of a leader, and they're going to understand what they need to do to help others.
Did your kids like spending time with you?
Yeah, they loved it. My children loved when we played hockey together, when rowing together, when sailing together, fishing together, playing golf together. All the sports that we have, I've had them play the sports.
But you were an athlete, so you were busy. Or you could have been hanging out with your Flyer alum and so forth. You made time for your kids. Why was that so important?
Well, it was important because my career was over when I first started having a family. And so as a result, I found that I had more time to spend with them. They were a little younger, and I enjoyed having them there at school and going to all the things that they needed to have me be there for. And when I did the radio for 9 years, it was tough, but I had the summers free, so it gave me a little more time to spend with them.
That whole aspect I think is very important, because I think as busy people, I think some guys are making excuses for not being able to spend time with their kids. So I'm glad you're hitting those themes, and we'll bring them out in the videos. So we talked about role models, we talked about spending time, we talked about lessons. Maybe let me ask you this. If spending time with your kids, what do you think is the most important lesson that they learned from you? The most important lesson you think your kids got from you?
I think it was to always have fun when they're doing things together, and being a good sport. I think that's really important, because sometimes people get too competitive and they'll not be themselves. So it makes a difference as long as they're themselves and they have their own personalities. It really can make a difference.
What would your teammates say about you?
I think that they'd say that I'm a good teammate, and I worked hard, and I really cared, and that's why I won, because I played as a teammate with my team.
If you look at athletes in general today, all sports, do they have the same sense of teamwork and being part of a team that you did?
I think it's changed a little bit more because there's more money, and when that happens, people kind of look after themselves, and the teams change a lot earlier, a little more, and so it's tough to have somebody stay in one place. I think in the 80s and 90s, we stayed around for like 10 years or longer, and as a result, people knew who we were, and they could identify with us.
I think this is my last question. Talk about how you and your wife, and I've met your wife and I don't know her well, but she's lovely. Can you talk about how husbands and wives, fathers and mothers together ought to be working as a team in raising the kids?
Yeah, it works where both families, both parents need to understand what's needed from the children, and as a result, by talking a lot, you understand what's going on, and you know what's going on, and you see what they're doing, and we help them. Like with my children, they're going to college now, and so they need a little help with that. But it's a joint effort.
If you were to pick one word, or you can make it two if you want, 10 years from now, if you look at your children, the thing that would make you most proud would be what? The thing that you want them most to become?
Honesty.
Just say the thing I want most for my kids.
The thing I want most for my children is honesty.
Why?
Because if you're honest, you're not going to make anything up, and it's a good trait to have.
How did they learn that from you?
Well, my father was a Lutheran minister, and so we're from Canada, and you learn the roles of my mom and my dad from young on.
What did you learn from your dad? Speaking of fathers, what did you learn from your dad?
How to be honest, and how to always know what was right, and make sure that you're doing the right things.